Okay, welcome to this week's episode of KUDEN Radio podcast, right? Martial artists, self-defense practitioners, Ninjutsu practitioners. We mentioned Ninjutsu a lot, right? But also general Bujutsu. Anyway, dai-shihan Miller here from Warrior Concepts and onlineninjaacademy.com. Sporting my new t-shirt. We'll talk about this after we get started. So just a little background about this. The premise from this, and I wanted it to kind of springboard off of our recent Daikomyo-sai training event, which we just had over this past weekend, right? Today's Monday, so it finished up yesterday. And there were a couple of really important points that I wanted students to really get out of it, which, believe it or not, right, really centered around failure. Okay. And I'll talk about that here in a bit. But if we think about it, in Ninjutsu, right, there are a couple of really important quotes out of the Ninpo principles kind of section. And one of those is that if a ninja draws a sword, he's already lost. Okay. And it's not about the sword. It's about if we have to employ our self-protection or self-defense, our fighting techniques, we're fucked. We've already lost. Okay. We're in an overwhelmed situation. If you were an ancient ninja, you would be by yourself or at best in a team of 3. I don't know, maybe a couple more, but you're in enemy territory. You may be in a castle, whatever, and you are far outnumbered. Right. So we spent a good deal of time focusing on, from the very first technique that we did on Friday night, focusing on this idea that you need to get away and you need to be able to handle, like, when we say overwhelming odds, everybody understands what the words mean, but I'm not sure that they fully understand the extent of what that means, right? So, but anyway, as a part of Daikomyo-sai, as a part of my annual camps, my spring camp, fall camp, and then the Daikomyo-sai, which we do at the beginning of the year, I have guest instructors do breakout sessions. And their sessions don't have to do they don't have to fit the theme for that particular event. I always pick a theme based on what I'm teaching. They don't have to. But one of my guys, Sensei Lee Davis, did a breakout session that actually touched on a biological reality, right? A reason for enduring and actually embracing challenges, hardship, failure, those kind of things, because it actually causes a biological change in the brain. So we're going to talk about that, and both why we try to avoid things and what that ultimately does, especially for us who are on this path. Okay. So we'll talk about that more, as well as several other things, right? As soon as we get back. So the big question is this: how are self-defense and success-minded people like us, concerned citizens worried about protecting ourselves, our loved ones, and the things we care about from the monsters we know exist in the world? How do we train in a way that gives us the skills, knowledge, and understanding we need without becoming paranoid fighters or killers ourselves, and yet still allows us to be the hero protector the world needs us to be? That's the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Jeffrey Miller, and welcome to KUDEN Radio. All right, let's just see. Fantastic. All right, I'm glad I'm back. Sorry, on our system they keep moving things around, and I'm never sure if things are where they're supposed to be. So, welcome to this week's episode of Warriors. I'm sorry, not Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday. It's KUDEN Radio. It's a podcast. Anyway, boy, I apologize if I confused anybody for half a second there. But this sets the stage for things that we're going to be doing for the rest of the week. So if you join us in for Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday, on Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern, we're going to be touching on this. I'll talk about that later, as well as, of course, then that leads into the Taiden the actual physical training. Okay, so if we understand the three, if we had a triangle, right, and we understand that each point is an aspect of training, but this whole thing is like a gem with like three facets or three aspects that make up the whole thing. Okay, so in training we have the taiden, which is what the vast majority of people get attracted to because they have this need, fantasy, dream, whatever, to be the kick-ass warrior, right? The invincible warrior. And that's fine, right? People can be attracted to whatever they want. Ultimately, if they're going to follow this path, there's two other places that we have to look, right? So there's the taiden, there's the shinden, right, which is the heart, right? It's us and the person we're becoming, because that's really what's going to decide how we apply those physical techniques. Okay, because if we can't, if we don't have any emotional control, or we're easily goaded into conflict, we have anger management problems and things like that, chances are we're going to use those physical techniques for the wrong reason. Okay, conversely, on the other side, right, if we've developed other faculties that are part and parcel of being not just a warrior, but a ninja, this shinobi warrior, somebody who operates. I know when I say operates in the shadows, it sounds, ominous and evil and things like that. But that's not what I mean. I mean, we're working to get things done, and we don't appear to be a threat to anyone. We are applying our skills and making things happen, and simultaneously making the world a better place, right? If you can get your head wrapped around that, right? We get what we wanted, and other people benefit as a result of us getting it because we got it. Okay, it's not very egocentric. Okay, so what we're going to be doing during this one is we're going to be exploring the concept of how embracing failure and enduring hardship, right? How they're not obstacles, right, but essential steps on the path to mastery, personal success, life, right? Getting things done better, faster, least amount of wear and tear, that kind of thing, right? So whether you're training in martial arts or you're navigating, let's say, life's challenges, whatever that may mean for you, here's the part that ego likes to resist, and that is that failure and hardship are inevitable. Okay? But how you respond to those things makes all the difference. Okay, so there's going to be maybe some strange things that I'm going to be referencing. I'm definitely going to be referencing some science. I'm going to try to make this as simple as possible, as in like layman's terms. I'll throw out the full name for something that you have with you all the time, but we'll make it as easy as possible. Okay, so one of the things we're going to be exploring is the Shinobi concept of Fumetsu no Seishin. Okay, Fumetsu no Seishin is Japanese for the Indomitable Spirit, right? How to be virtually unstoppable. Okay, does that mean you can't be stopped? No, of course not, right? But the Indomitable Spirit is the one that doesn't stop no matter what, unless whatever the challenge is kills you, right? Or stops some kind of process that's absolutely necessary. Okay, we're not the reason for the quitting, for the end point, right? Also going to take a look at how modern science supports the ancient practice, or what we might call failing forward, right? And how you can apply this mindset in every part of your life. I'm also going to make reference to a mythical creature that shows up both in the East and in the West in folklore and as a symbol, and that's the phoenix, right? This mystical bird or mythical bird that is reborn out of the failure, right? And burst forth and is reborn out of the ashes of a failure. Okay. Again, all this symbolism, right? But it moves us in a certain direction. Okay. I do have a personal story that I'm going to share. I'll get to that in a bit. But I love when this happens. When science validates these ancient things to where it becomes harder and harder, people can still do it, right? People can make up bullshit stuff all they want, right? But it becomes more and more difficult for someone to write this off as that's just this ancient stuff, man. We're smarter now, right? We've got science. Every time I turn around, whether it's something out of Mikyo or it's something out of Ninpo, science is like not just validating. They say that they're discovering. They made a discovery, ta-da, right? I say they're rediscovering something that has been a part of our tradition and the ancient knowledge and wisdom centuries. Right? I remember one of the most recent ones I saw was scientists had figured out why our arms swing when we walk. And it was to counter the balance because we're bipeds. And so to counter the balance of this shifting weight, shifting balance kind of thing. And I and several of my students and friends, talk about this story. And we just have this little smile on our face like, oh, did they discover that? That's pretty amazing. Okay. Because what we've learned is that the more you learn to control your body, legs, joints, to maintain that balance as you move and you move from the ground up, the less arm swing you have. So what they really discovered was why people who move more like cavemen swing their arms. They move from the top down, that lumbering kind of thing where the legs are moving, but they're not moving the way martial arts, right, Bujutsu, has always taught, and other activities like that, right? Gymnastics, dance, those things where the legs are just this huge part of things, right? So we have these terms, right? In the Gyokoryu, in the Kyonapo, and again, I'm not talking about the list of techniques that are a combination of the Sanden Kamai, Sanden Kata, and the Torite Gata, where the hand escape, grab, escape kind of things. Which, by the way, in the Gyokoryu, there aren't 8 techniques for the Kihon Happo. Happo in that case means infinite, and in the examples for the Torite Kihon, the hand grab, escapes and releases and whatnot, there's 10 just there. And we're just going to ignore the fact that as I came up very, very early on in this training, right? I started in 1980. So very early on, 1, we didn't have names for these things. And 2, we had multiple versions of those quote unquote 8 techniques. Okay. The Ichimonji, Hicho, and Jumonji no Kata stayed the same. But there were certain things that changed within the Torite. So, go figure, right? But in the Gyokoryu, there's this concept of there's a set of Kyonapo, and these are 8 areas of study, okay? One of which is called Hoho. And for those of you in America, no, they're not the chocolate cream-filled cakes or whatever the hell they are, and it's not Santa Claus's laugh, okay? Hoho, it's the same kanji for ashi, but Hoho means methods or ways of using the legs. Okay, for both combat and not and whatnot. Okay, in other arts and in other times, it was called Sokoho no Budo, that kind of thing, right? martial arts of the legs. Okay, so really kind of dives in and breaks into things. So when these folks discover things, it's always very interesting. But again, over and over and over again, science is rediscovering the benefits of, right? 10 minutes of meditation drops cortisol levels, the stress hormone, by a significant percentage. All kinds of things, right? And we're going to be discussing one of those tonight as well. There's a specific part of your brain that is responsible for our ability to handle stress and motivation, solve problems, all that kind of stuff, right? So we're going to talk about that. And we've just got maybe some weird things as we move through. All right. But they're all important. Okay. So before I jump into that, let's see. James, are you still on? Who do we have? Who's on? Who said hey? Who do I need to say hey back to? I never bring up the chat for those of you who are new to this, because early on we did that, and anybody hijacks a feed, then suddenly everybody else sees it. We've had everybody from anti-Semites to, I don't know, some good professional retards and morons. And so anyway, I know, not politically correct, but if that's what you're looking for, this should explain everything. Right? So, and nothing makes me chuckle more than people who want to be strong, invincible, handle anything warriors who get ass hurt or butt hurt or whatever because somebody used a term that's not PC. Are you fucking kidding? There's another one. Just another reason to click off. Okay. So, and there's plenty of other podcasts. There's whatever. Okay. And lots of other distractions in life. Okay. And this is another reason why we're doing this thing. But anyway, Sensei Davis did this thing on getting more out of your training and being a solo training student and how to really kind of push yourself. And one of these things came up, the brain thing. And I thought I would grab it by the reins and run with it. So anyway, back to you, James. Who's on? Who's saying hey? Who has a question? Who's already butthurt? You know what we ought to do? We ought to, anybody that's butthurt or whatever, just have them leave their mailing address and stuff. And we just send a tube of Preparation H or something like that. What do you think? No? For those of you who don't know what Preparation H is, the H in Preparation H stands for hemorrhoid, right? It's an ass cream. So anyway, hey, new year.
So far, we've got Dave, Greg from Australia,
awesome.
Victor, and Jimmy's checked in. And Victor says there's a difference between ass hurt and butt hurt.
Obviously a specialist. Thanks, Victor. Ass hurt, but okay, fair enough. So if we involve ourselves in the martial art of Kajikembo, then we could have ass hurt. Is that okay? Right? I always call Kajikembo. It's that Polynesian martial art, and their primary weapon is a boat oar. Right. My nickname for Kajikembo is the whack 'em in the ass with a boat paddle martial art. So anyway, of course, knowing Victor's a New York transplant to Florida. So there's still a lot of New York in the boy. So who knows? He could make jackwagon lollipops or something with that Kajikembo oar. That'd be cool, right? Kind of like Jose Jalapeno on a stick, but the guy's name doesn't have to be Jose. Yeah. Anyway, is that it? That's what we have?
Yes, sir. That's it right now.
Fair enough. All right. Well, let's jump into things. I'm going to jump over here to my notes and my outline so I don't miss anything. Okay. So let's do this. Before we dive into references to techniques and strategies and all that kind of stuff for embracing failure, I want to share a bit of my own background, because for me, this wasn't just theory. Right now, I didn't have words to put to things until later in my training and after I was doing other research and I was helping students and like the brain science and stuff like that. Um, but what I mean is it wasn't just theory, as in like I went to a martial arts school, teacher talks about certain types of dangers. My life, never really had to face danger. Everybody's nice. Everybody validates me on a regular basis. My self-esteem is out the wazoo. Um, and I'm probably not taking martial arts for self-defense. It's just the opposite. Okay. Not theory, right? This was survival. This was my life. And for those of you who didn't go through episode 68, which is quite long, but it's my backstory. It's the reason I'm here. It's the reason that my approach is what it is. It's the reason that endurance and fortitude and all those things were not choices. They were necessities for survival. If you didn't read those, or maybe you're new to things and you haven't heard the bits and pieces or put things together or whatever, the short of it is I grew up in a household where not only was there physical, mental, and emotional abuse, but there was also a mindset. And I don't know, maybe you can relate to some of this, maybe not, but there was a mindset. Right? This is a deeply ingrained belief system that was just passed on from generation to generation and just spread out, right? My cousins were the same. And while my cousins and my their parents, my aunt and uncle on my stepdad's side, were a bit better off than we were. Right? Always had newer cars, had a nicer house. They owned, we rented, that that kind of thing. It was just because they did more of the same stuff that produced a little bit better, and they didn't squander stuff and whatever. Okay. But this was a belief system, right? And the belief system is that hardship was something to be avoided at all costs, right? This is something that's pointed out in our Mikyo, in the very foundational teachings, right? That ego strives to only have the best of things for a happy, enjoyable life, and to completely and utterly avoid all negative, right? And so there's an analogy about, because remember, these things go way back in the day, right? About a canister or a bucket of milk, right? The cow's been milked and whatnot. And so this thing's had a chance to sit. And when milk sits, it separates. Okay. It separates. The cream, the fatty, sweet cream rises to the top. And then the milk, right? What's left over is below it. And so there literally is a dividing line. It's like putting oil on water, right? And just letting it sit so that the oil, kind of rejoins itself. And the oil forms a layer on top. And you can literally look at a glass of water or a translucent container that has water and oil in it, and you can see the dividing line, right? It's not jagged or anything. It's just is there. Oil, water. Okay. So milk is the same way. And the analogy is that in life, most human beings, because Mikyo at its core, the exoteric teachings, are all about the human condition. Okay. And so one of the primary things that cause dukkha, discomfort, dissatisfaction, literal pain, anguish, all that kind of stuff, right? Is that we strive to take like a strainer or a spoon or some kind of device or whatever, right? And only skim off that layer of cream and get no milk, but also to not miss any cream. And the fact that that's like really fucking impossible causes aggravation. It causes frustration, right? It's like a challenge. And I'm betting that at some point tonight or at some point in the future, somebody's going to hear this, have access to a freaking bucket of milk or some kind of container of whole milk, freshly, and they're going to try it because, Eagle also has a need to prove that teachers are wrong, right? Or that it doesn't do that kind of thing. But it goes back to this idea where, hardship is something to fear, to avoid, that kind of thing, right? So, and again, like avoid it at all costs, okay? To the point where it's not like my parents didn't set goals. Goals were set. Like I can't tell you the number of years from early childhood on until they just stopped talking about it, where we were going to Disney that year. I took my children to Disney. That's when I went to Disney. Okay? But no sooner was the goal set, they were immediately sabotaged with phrases like, well, knowing our luck, something's going to happen to screw it up, right? And then other things like laziness, self-sabotage, fear of hardship, right? They were the rules of the game, okay? To go to Disney, more money was going to need to be made. My stepdad was making freaking phenomenal money, right? In the 70s, he was making $12 to $15 an hour. I don't know if anybody understands the significance of that, but minimum wage, I don't even think it had gone up to something an hour at that point. Okay. So, but, where it started off working the extra hours, and then it's just too much fucking hard work. It's just easier to not go, but lead the kids on until, 3 months, 6 months after we were supposed to go. Like I thought we were going to, and then, then there was more yelling and screaming and we don't appreciate things and whatever. Anyway, so just very, very different. Right. But I was surrounded by people who avoided hardship. I was surrounded by people who sabotaged their own success and believed that things were just destined to go wrong. Right. Just looking back on it now, sometimes I am surprised that I'm here. I don't mean here alive. Well, some days there was that because I had to survive the physical to get out. But that was my surroundings. Everyone spoke the same way. Right. But, and I truly do believe that there was an aspect of myself that was wired, who knows from where, birth. Maybe it was my maternal grandparents. They're the only ones that didn't speak this way. Where I had a driving desire to try things that were new, whether it was a food or an experience or whatever. Does that mean I wasn't afraid? No, of course not. There was all kinds of friggin' anxiety and, what if this goes wrong and that kind of thing. And my stepdad used to always make fun of me for that stuff, right? Everybody be picking something off a list, and I'd see something new, and I go, can I try that? And he'd make a big deal out of it. I always need to try something new. But in spite of himself, he still nurtured it because he was hoping he'd find something that I wouldn't like or that would backfire on me or whatever, and then he could laugh at me. That was the name of the game. Okay. So, just long story short, right? I mean, because of the physical abuse, I got involved in martial arts, which came with more threats, but I did it anyway. And, you can only be beaten to death once. So, but anyway, eventually, and thanks to my mentors in both Ninpo and then eventually my Miko teacher, Reverend Jikai, who I actually connected with through my first Ninpo teacher. Okay. But thanks to them, right, I learned lessons and was given skills and instructions, right, that allowed me to learn to face hardship head on. anxiety, um, and failure. Failure is a huge one, right? Using what I now call the trial by fire method, right? What that means is that I just put myself out there. Okay. Teacher need an uke. I'll do it. Huh? Uke me. I was not an athletic kid growing up. Okay. But I took to rolling. I would figure this shit out. I almost broke my neck once, trying to dive from a place that I didn't make sure was anchored down first. Okay. But just again and again and again until I got it right. And then I became a preferred uke because the teacher wasn't going to use somebody else's uke for certain types of techniques where they were going to get broken. Okay. But using this method, I did something that I call failing forward. And as a matter of fact, there's other, this is not something I came up with. I actually borrowed this from other mentors in other realms in my life. Okay. But I failed forward until I got things right. Okay. And that kind of points to something else we're going to be discussing, which is this idea of just recognizing that when you try something new, it's probably not going to work out. Okay. So one of my mentors, and therefore I use it, right, calls it embracing the suck. Okay. But over time, and again, it's going to be one of those cheesy references, like a phoenix rising from the ashes of both the life that would have just, we'll not have that discussion. Anyway, and that trial by fire, volunteering to be the uke and working on skills and techniques until I got them right, no matter how many times I fell off the freaking tree I was trying to run up, or the vaults or the rolls or the trying, okay, can we roll up steps? Can we roll up a hill? Right? When we roll down a hill, how do we catch ourselves? Right? How do we steer? Can I leap up and roll over the roof of a car and come down on my feet on the other side? The answer is yes. Freaked out my brother. Anyway, over time, right, I rewired those old destructive habits that weren't mine to begin with, right, into new ones that allowed me to build success, one success after another. Right? I mean, in my world today, and my wife and I are not, don't ever believe that we're like swimming in money or anything. We've got our own little thing, and we've got a couple of 1.5 children that no matter how many lessons are taught, they would rather swim upstream and slam into a wall and then call us to save them, and then be pissed off when we offer to help them in guidance, but not in the legwork. Yeah. So, but my point here is that at this point in our lives, now she works for the man, I work for myself, but that what that really means is that she has three employers, one full-time, two part-time, and sticks. My wife is undiagnosed ADD, so she sticks herself in all kinds of things, right? The American Legion, Women's Auxiliary, all kinds of things. If there's a project that can help people, she's on a board to get a community college into our area, and now it's forming and whatnot. So now she's on the board to help steer that so it can be successful. And anyway, but contrary to most people's belief, being the guy who owns the business just means that I have way more bosses, because I have to not only fulfill on promises and make sure people get their training, but also, make sure that it's on time, and I'm held accountable by students. Like if there's a glitch in a system and they can't download whatever, or, and James helps me out with that a lot. I mean, it's just the name of the game. And I couldn't do half the stuff I do without him. So I should probably promote him to 10th degree black belt or something like that. And, let him walk around in a Jimbo Woody and stuff. What do you think, James? Would that work? It'd work for me. It would work for some other students.
I'm good.
Third dan, fourth dan, fifth dan. Shit, we're just passing it out. No? All right. Anyway. Yeah. Anyway. So this is, I always, when I share these stories like this that are very personal, I almost feel like I'm at like some religious convention, like this Ninjutsu saved me or whatever. But if it wouldn't have been for mentors and these lessons and my willingness to work the lessons, you'd be on somebody else's podcast. So anyway, I'll talk about the Phoenix here a little bit next, but at the moment, any questions, comments, anything come up? Anybody able to relate to those stories or any part of it?
The only new things is Trinity and Terrence both checked in.
Trinity just got home a little while ago. My daughter lives in Washington, D.C. It's about a 4-hour drive. And she was with me the entire weekend because of Daikomyosai, and then she was with me for part of the day, and then had to drive back. So glad she made it safe. Awesome. Terrence, my other brother, or son, or whatever he is. Anyway, he didn't come to visit, but I love him anyway. Not because I'm supposed to.
Greg says never try to advise your kids, LOL.
Well, that's not going to not happen. I believe there's a huge difference between advice and no, I take that back. There's a huge difference in the way advice is defined, translated, and or approached. Okay. Advice is just that. It's getting a different viewpoint, right? You can ask for all the advice in the world. You don't have to take any of it. But for a lot of people, they believe that either when they're asked for advice or they're giving advice, the intent behind it isn't guidance or an alternate viewpoint. It's, I'm giving you instructions to do this thing. And I know that because I've asked people for advice. And then what they don't understand is that I've asked multiple people for advice. And then I ultimately have to do it. And then based on context and based on what I think I'm able to do and whatnot, I proceed. But inevitably, and very often, that pisses off several of those people that I ask for advice. And I know that because they say, I don't know why you asked for advice when you're not going to do what I told you anyway. Did you hear what they just said to me? Right? I asked for advice, but they told me to do something. Well, it's really easy to tell somebody to do something when, you know, the consequences of it failing is not, right? And advice is advice. If somebody asks me for advice, you know, I say, one, I'm not you. And that there's a whole lot that goes along with that, right? I'm not you, which means I don't process the world the same way. Even if I think I do, I don't process things the same way. I don't have the same past experiences. I don't have the same fears, anxieties, drives, goals, needs, none of that. Okay. I also, and that's not just generally speaking, that's about toward any particular task that might need to be carried out in that process. Like if you're not willing to, if there's 10 steps to it, you're not willing to do 3, 7, and 8, and you still hope that it's going to work out. Okay. Therein lies a problem. Okay. So one, I'm not you. Two, I'm not in your circumstances. So what may be a fear-based driver for you is I need to get it done because it's important for the next stage of things that I'm doing. But I'm not driven by fear. I'm not driven by anxiety. I'm not driven by other people's perceptions about me or what if I don't attain this level, or what will they say about me if, and I know it's easy to say I don't give a fuck, but there's a lot of people that I know that say that, but their decisions and their words and their actions say something completely different. Okay. So that being said, if this were me and what you've told me, which I'm going to assume that you were forthright and gave me the whole story, but I can only operate based on what you told me. Okay? I would do XYZ. But your life, your choice, I'm only giving you my perspective about how I would do it. So, one, are you clear on that? Yes, Sensei. Great. Two, I don't want to hear, if it fails, you coming back and telling me that that failure was my fault, because I gave you the information. You have to decide whether or not you're going to do it, to what extent, and for how long. Because a lot of people who ask for advice are looking for a scapegoat. A lot of people that give advice are looking to live vicariously through somebody else, and or have a sense of control or whatever. Now, as parents, we walk a really fine tightrope, and I get it. I absolutely get it, right? Because we don't want to see them fall on their face. But this episode is going to point to the fact that unless it's going to kill them, some people need to bounce off of walls or the world or whatever, to gain the necessary experience and insight that allows for more enlightened decisions to be made. Okay. We actually have to fail a lot to actually learn why something is done the way it's done. Okay. There's a statistic that I saw, and I can't quote the numbers at the moment, but it's a really high percentage. In universities, there is, at least there used to be, this idea of a work study kind of thing, right? Where some folks that were paying their own way through college, mom and dad weren't doing it, they didn't have grants and all that kind of stuff, they had to pay their own way, right? So they got loans that they'd have to pay back. But they also, the work study thing was, maybe there was a job opening at the library, and so many hours a week they're working at the library, or it could be anything, right? And so what they found was that the folks that were paying their way through college and doing extra things like the work study and whatnot, actually had a higher grade point average, on average, had a higher grade point average, and far less likely to be distracted or to party or those kind of things, and to actually complete things, to actually succeed. Less dropouts, less whatever. They were the top of all of those curves, because the consequences of failure was on them. They were burning their own money if they failed, not somebody else's, right? So ownership of action is huge. Okay. But there's some science behind this. Okay. All right. Anything else before I jump into this next piece? Oh, and don't forget, whatever platform you're on, don't forget, like, share. If you're on YouTube and you just found us or whatever, hit the subscribe and the little bell thing so that you get notifications. If you go over to onlineninjaacademy.com / is it KUDEN podcast or KUDEN -podcast? If you can put it in the chat, that'd be awesome for people. If you're not already subscribed to the KUDEN subscriber list, I highly recommend doing that, because those folks get the email first about the upcoming episodes, reminders and all that kind of stuff, before everybody else. Everybody else gets it like within the day of, right? But we try to get them out at least a day and a half to 2 days early, sometimes even earlier than that. But if you're on that subscriber list, there's that. And then there's some other benefits if we decide to run some special invite-only training offer and whatnot. Folks that are on our subscriber list find out first before the social posts go out to the platforms where you might be subscribed or following us or something like that. Okay. Membership has its benefits. Anyway, anything, James? No?
No, sir. That's it.
Okay, cool. All right. So let me jump back over here to my outline. All right. So let's talk a little bit about the Phoenix. If you got a chance to see the title screen when you signed on, if you signed on at time, or if you're on the email list, or if you're following us on the KUDEN podcast page, the online Ninjutsu training page on Facebook, on my YouTube channel. I post these things in the community section, community tabs. If you got a chance to see the artwork I created for the slide or for the promo meme, you'll see that there is a picture in the upper right hand corner, not of the whole picture. That's the KUDEN logo. In the left side, okay, there's a section that has me standing in front of one of the shrines on Togakushi a couple of years ago, more than a couple of years ago. Anyway, I'm standing there, and then to my to my left, to my right, when you're looking at it, there's my dai-shihan patch, and then above that is an old Asian print that I don't know if you can read the kanji or not, doesn't matter, but it's a picture of a phoenix, okay, spelled Phoenix for those of you who are not English language speakers. I don't know what it might be called in your area, but this is this symbol of this bird. It's a symbol of rebirth. It's a symbol of arising anew out of the ashes of failure, of destruction, those kind of things. Okay. The symbology is really, really similar across East and West. This is a universal symbol. It's in the West. We know it that way. It's in the East. The big difference is that in the West, the phoenix is typically rising up out of death, destruction, that kind of stuff. It's a pretty foreboding kind of thing, but it points to an extreme. Okay. In the East, it more points to life and some other things. So I'll talk about that here as we go. So just a quick thing here on not just the phoenix symbolism, but we're going to start leaning into the idea of rewiring our system. Okay. The training as passed down by the past masters, not in the Densho, in the Makimono, and also in the KUDEN, the oral transmission. Okay. Definitely not limited to the physical techniques. And actually, the physical techniques in the Densho, it's like crib notes, right? They're just moves. Without a lot of this stuff that's over in the Makimono, where the philosophical teachings are and whatnot, the principles, the concepts, those kind of things, you have no fuel for your vehicles, right? You can do those techniques any way you want, and they'll appear to be right because you did the step by step by step. But there are kata. Sometimes the kata have like almost identical names, right? Is it ski komi or is it ate komi? Is it whatever? Right? The essential nature of the technique is the same. One just happens to be Kukushinden sword. The other one happens to be an unarmed version using shuko in Togakure. But Togakure also has a version of ski kome, piercing stop. That's used with a sword as well, but without the principles and concepts, it's very difficult to not do them step by step, not do them physically, mechanically. It's difficult to explain or to demonstrate or to understand strategically and tactically what makes a Kyokushinden Ryu technique Kyokushinden and not Gyoko and not Tagagi Yoshin and not Togakure. Okay. So, but they pass down way more. And a lot of that is about literally recreating ourselves. Right. And not theoretically. Okay. I mentioned this earlier when I first got started. I'm going to share one little part of our brain during this one. That again, hopefully Lee Davis is on. He made it much more succinct than I'm going to do it. But it's just part of the brain that, believe it or not, if we do the right things, it grows in size. It grows in density. And not only does it allow us to do more of the things that it's responsible for across, it's like a hub in our brain that is connected to all these other regions. And it doesn't just grow and get better at some of these things. I'll talk about those in a bit. Right. But it grows because of failure and hardship. It grows because we push ourselves through to do things that we don't want to do, right? This, in essence, from the Eastern perspective, is a type of a rising out of the fire, like the phoenix kind of thing. It's also larger. If you see people that always seem to be highly motivated, they're more calm under pressure, they can problem solve on the fly, that kind of thing, right? They always seem to be happier. There's some key components, right? And hopefully I have it still in one of my tabs. I'll flip over and kind of share some of the science in layman's terms very, very quickly. This part of their brain is bigger. And it allows them to go through fire, quote unquote, fire, easier. Okay? And they're more willing to do it. Less hesitation, those kind of things. Okay? Those who avoid tend to be lazy, both physically and as thinkers, or complain about, I just can't get motivated, all these kind of things, right? Theirs is actually smaller. And it's smaller because it gets no use. And you know that old saying, if you don't use it, you lose it. Okay. So let's take a look at this phoenix symbolism and we'll just keep on rolling. Okay. So the phoenix or whole in Japanese mythology is a very powerful symbol of transformation. Okay. Of being burned by life's challenges and emerging stronger, wiser, and more capable. But this kind of transformation doesn't happen by accident. Okay. It happens through training. It happens through experiencing. It happens by walking through the goddamn fire, by working long and hard and enough at the new habits, the new skills or mindsets or whatever that you want to develop until they're wired into your system. Okay. Our brains, our muscle memory and all that kind of stuff get wired over time based on not just at what we're taught, but what we experience again and again and again and have to adapt to. Our systems are very adaptable. But also, doing the same things again and again, right? So what ends up happening is your brain, one, is very much like, think not like a cell phone network, but like a landline network. Okay, got all these wires running all over the place, right? So I used to reference for the old guys, Ma Bell or Verizon or AT&T or whatever. AT&T is just an abbreviation of the original company's name, which is the American Telephone and Telegraph Company. Okay, see, lazy leads. People stopped saying McDonald's and they started saying Mickey D's. right? They do it all the time with things, okay? Because they lean into least effort to get the job done, which in itself is not a bad thing. But lazy doesn't just beget more lazy, it begets more lazy because the system shuts down to that level. I don't need more until I need more, and then I can be shit out of luck. Okay. So the more we do, and the more that we do that challenges us, the more we end up learning because we have to solve the problem. The more resilient we get mentally, physically, emotionally, because that level of challenge is, it's kind of like a soldier, right? Who's always getting deployed. So that kind of area, right? Or law enforcement or whatever, where they're in a high crime area and stuff. So there's always a need for restraint, for like restraining somebody or de-escalation abilities and whatnot. They just get more and more calm and more, um, you know, they're less frantic than the new guy on the block, so to speak. Okay. So, but the system literally is getting rewired. Okay. The Phoenix, again, powerful symbol of transformation, right? Um, so in both martial arts, well, I mean, let me back up here a second here. Okay. So here's the key, right? Transformation doesn't happen by accident. It also doesn't happen by willpower. Like I'm gonna transform myself. I'm gonna be more resilient. I'm gonna be more calm. No, no. What we do is we put ourselves through situations again and again and again that requires to be calm under pressure. We're calm because one, we trust our ability to figure things out. Okay. There's something in combat called collateral damage. Okay. Untrained people cause way more collateral damage than somebody who's trained because they haven't been in that situation. They have no system or processes for handling it when it occurs, and they have to shit themselves and make it up on the fly. So, right? So they end up causing more damage in the process, right? Either with the person that they're engaged with, or they cause more ripples. Right? It's all karma. Co-workers that aren't going to trust them to help them out again, whatever. Okay. I know somebody who, now there's probably reasons chemically that they get paranoid, but they lost a job within like the first week or week and a half because somebody was watching to make sure that they were doing things right. They just got started, right? But because they were being watched, they got sensitive. And then the more it went on, eventually they just broke. And it didn't take very long, by the way. They just broke and then exploded verbally, physically. They were shaking the whole thing. And that person reported back to leadership that they didn't feel safe around this person. So that person had to go, not the person who reported. Okay. But because they weren't able to handle stress or because they were paranoid that this person was waiting to catch them doing something wrong, as opposed to there to help them should something go wrong, everything changed. Now they translate the situation differently, but yeah. So, but that's that. I know this person very well, and that's their default. Okay? The default is when the pressure gets to be just a little bit higher than normal, right? Panic sets in, and the default mechanism is to explode and or break down in a way that other people will rush in and solve the problem, so that either they don't have to put up with the bullshit or so that they can relieve this person of the pressure. But they're doing them a huge disservice by not creating a situation where they have to solve it. And until they have to solve it, their default mechanism is to operate in a way that gets somebody else to solve the problem so that the problem goes away from them. And then afterwards, they can say, I was going to do it. I was just trying to figure out how. Okay, fair enough. Then when the other person did it, why didn't you just tear it up, or why didn't you just toss it to the side, or set it beside the one you were going to do, and then figure out how that was done, so that, but instead you didn't. You took it and you turned it in as yours, or you took credit for it, or you allowed the problem to dissolve because somebody else took care of it. And on a routine basis, the same kind of thing happens. So the person has no reason logically, or as a life choice, to develop a new skill set across many different areas. Right? So again, working long and hard enough, because we have to understand. I went through that whole brain thing with the whole telephone, telegraph, wire system and whatnot. Okay. If we understand that analogy, the phone line system, and even now with cell phones, it's harder to see this because your brain doesn't work this way. It's wiring. Right. So if you understand that the phone wire system, or the cable wiring, or whatever, electrical wiring, electrical wires and whatnot, went in based on where communities were. So if somebody had a house that was like 5 miles outside of town, they probably didn't have electricity or phone service or whatever. They had to go in town to a central office, or go to a friend's house, or whatever, right? But as the town grew out around their house, or other people set up around their house or whatever, and now you've got this big enough thing that it's cost efficient for the electric company, the cable company, the phone company to run wires in that direction, then now it's a part of the network. Okay. But what happens if some catastrophe occurs? We have an area near us called Centralia. You may have heard of it. Okay. In East Central Pennsylvania, it's a coal region where decades ago, like I think it was in the 60s, right around the time I was born, a coal fire broke out. Okay. And they tried everything to put it out, and nothing worked because it's that big. There's literally a fireball burning underneath the crust of the earth near me. Okay. And because we're in a huge coal region. And so here's the way it works, right? Coal releases methane. Methane is flammable. When methane burns, it creates more heat, which makes coal release methane faster, which is flammable. You get the idea, right? So Centralia is a ghost town. Okay. There's electrical wires, there's phone wires and whatnot, but all these companies, all these utility companies, just disconnected to that area and rerouted to other areas as these people moved over into other ones and put more strain or need or whatever in outlying areas. Same thing as little burgs grow up and whatnot, right? Oh, okay. Now it's worth the expense for us to run it out there and service it and whatever. Okay. Our brains are the same way. So we've got this wiring. We don't just have memories for the sake of memories. We have wiring that holds the memories. Same thing with all of our habits. Okay. Whether it's moving the arm or breathing or whatever, there's all this wiring. Okay. And it's fully entrenched. Okay. This process of transformation isn't woo-woo. It's biological. Okay. We have to do the new thing long enough and with enough strain, because it's going to be really uncomfortable. You know it's uncomfortable because either you or me or students or whoever will say, well, that doesn't seem right. That's not normal. That doesn't make any sense. That's again, that's not me. That's weird. It feels weird. It doesn't feel right. That doesn't feel natural for me, or what? Well, no shit. Because it's not part of your wiring. It's not part of the subconscious programming. We have to do it long enough that our system, which is, again, very adaptable, goes, and again, it's not talking like this, but you get the idea. It goes, shit. We keep bumping into this and having to reroute stuff. And of course, that makes the coordination all funky and whatever, right? We need to establish a new phone network, right? To get the wires so that this is streamlined. Practice enough that it stops becoming robot-like and it gets smoother and smoother and smoother. But that's not the end of it. Because if stress is applied, remember the old phone lines were way more tried and true than the new ones. Under stress, the brain is more likely to use the old system because it can get things from A to B way faster. Which is why we're really good in the dojo at a certain speed, and all of a sudden the speed changes and we go back to something that looks like the old thing. Or absolutely like the old thing. Okay. So we have to train more and we have to apply resistance, right? We have to apply hardship so that the body is forced to do the new thing more and more and more. And what ends up happening is over time, again, this is the brain talking to itself, right? Okay, look, we're wasting a whole lot of stuff here we could reuse, okay? Because a lot of this wiring and all that kind of stuff is made of enzymes, which are protein chains, all kinds of things that the body can break down and recycle and use for something else, or at least get rid of, right? Because it's just taking up space. So if we do it long enough and hard enough, those of you who have been with me for a while, and especially those of you who have been in the Mikyo-based programs, you've heard me use this. Most people stop because it's too much. It's just too much damn hard work. But it has to be. To change, it has to be. Because the system, the muscle memory, your muscles, brain wiring, all that kind of stuff, has to get to a point where we are using the new system, the new wiring, all the time. So where it just goes, well, shit, we just disconnect these. These things are no more, they're no longer necessary. And it'll keep building that other stuff up so that it gets from point A to point B faster. We are very adaptive creatures, more adaptable than any other plant, any other animal on the planet. Okay? If we move animals from one place to another, we got to put them in zoos, or we have to, take them in as pets or whatever, because they're going to fucking die. Right? They don't adapt that well. The human system, and we're not the biggest, strongest, best killer, or whatever. I mean, we're the best killers now on the planet, but it's this adaptability that's allowed us to be at the top of the food chain without being the biggest one with the biggest teeth and the fastest and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so we have to understand that there's this thing, right? So one of the fires that we emerge from using this Phoenix symbology is the pain and trial and hardship of the training process itself. Okay? In both martial arts and life, we call this process habits, right? But habits are nothing more than deeply wired behaviors, anchored in our past experiences, our past lessons, and our past role models. Often I ask my students, who are you being right now? And don't say you, because you are an amalgamation of all the people that you have imitated to take on the qualities that they had that you wanted. Okay? And if you want to change your life, okay, you want to upgrade your abilities, you want to add to your abilities, and you want to make them street ready, you have to train long and hard enough to rewire those old patterns into new productive habits, patterns, that kind of thing. Okay. So, big key insight that I want you to take out of this is that habits aren't just behaviors, right? That's why most people give up on New Year's resolutions, right? They make a resolution, but see, most people don't make resolutions. Most people make, at best, promises to themselves. At best, they express a desire for. Okay, because the word resolution comes from the word resolve. The word resolve means to commit to something or die trying. So most people don't make New Year's resolutions. Okay? This will be so. Okay? But habits aren't just behaviors. Habits are deeply wired patterns based on our past experiences, and our role models. Okay? I once got a definition of reality from a Buddhist teacher. And that definition was that our reality is based on that which we have experienced. And if not taken control of, where we make different decisions, create different experiences. Okay. So our reality is based on what we have experienced and will in turn, if left unchecked, determine what we will experience. We just do it again and again and again. The faces change, the names change, the locations change. It's like running a computer program. Okay. So again, if you want to change your life, you want to change your skill level, you want to grow it, you want it to be more fluid, you want it to be in a point where you don't have to think about the new thing. I remember there's a technique that we just did this past weekend. As a matter of fact, it was yesterday, just before we were done. We did Shinobi Katana. And again, I didn't do a lot of kata from the scrolls. The whole idea was to extrapolate the secrets, the principles and concepts, and then do them in a way that, right, here's a reflection of it. Okay. The last thing I wanted this last weekend to be was another regurgitation of the same kata that people can find on the fucking internet. But there's a kata, the name doesn't matter, right? Where he has a katana and he's moving in on me, and I have my sword out in this doko hachimonji ish kind of thing, pointing at him. And as he moves in, I move, and there's a moment where I poke at him to get him to stall, and then I either throw shuriken or I throw Mitsubishi, whatever. Okay, and then we altered that by I had my sword. I was the ninja. Had my sword in my obi, and I had a shuriken concealed on the tsuka. Just held with my thumb. Right, it was just there. Okay, and as he moved from Seigan to Daijodan to attack, right, I threw the shuriken first. Okay, because that's just the same as that poke stall kind of thing, right? So I threw the shuriken and then I drew my sword, right, while he was busy dealing with the shuriken, right? Well, I had Shinobi. I had Shidoshi Whistler helping me, and he's 6th Dan. He'll be 7th Dan here before he knows it. He was a little bit aggravated afterwards, and not at me, at himself. He knows what the source of it was. And my guys run into this kind of frustration on a regular basis, because the frustration comes from, I know what he's doing, I just can't stop it when because of when he's doing it, right? And so what he explained later to the students was, I threw the shuriken and I drew the sword, okay? The action for throwing the shuriken and coming back, because we had just done that training earlier. Was it earlier in the day, James, or was it Saturday? When did we do the shuriken throwing? Sunday morning, right? It was first thing during the day, right? Because we did shuriken throwing, and then I taught people how to make blowgun out of office supplies,
right,
and we fired those things off, right? Cool. Okay. So yeah, so we did the feeding kind of thing. So the stack is in your hand, and the hand goes straight out. The arm adjusts. It's not a frisbee, right? If the shoulder and the elbow are stationary, then your brain has to make a calculation as to when to let go, which tends to work for people that throw knives and throw axes and all that, because you're stationary, and the target's stationary, and the distance is standardized. So you just have to throw the same way every time and figure out what that is. And then you can impress yourself and others. Ta-da, right? But if I'm moving to avoid something, now there's a whole different calculation, because not only am I moving relative to him, right? But that calculation has to change. And then if I'm moving and he's moving when I launch the shuriken, or if I'm in the middle of a side roll and throw it from inside the roll, right? So now I'm not just moving laterally, my body's turning end over end and my arm has to move straight. So anyway, there was a straight out and back to the stack kind of thing, right? Hand move straight. Okay. So that's all the technique was. Okay. Throw the shuriken, distract, and then draw the sword. Okay. What he said later was, because my hand moves the same to throw a shuriken as it does to draw the sword, to take and draw the sword, right? When my hand came back and drew the sword, his brain saw me throw another shuriken, but I wasn't throwing a shuriken. So what ended up happening was he avoided getting hit by an actual shuriken. And then as I was drawing the sword, his mind saw a shuriken coming. So he moved to avoid the shuriken and then went back to try to catch me at drawing the sword, except the sword was already out in his face. It appeared out of nowhere. Of course, it didn't appear out of nowhere. But that didn't come from practice every once in a while. That came from practice until the freaking forearm muscles burned, shoulder joint, doing it on both sides, doing the same thing with the sword. In this case, with the Phoenix, the fire, the burn, the whatever, takes on many different forms. Okay? Loss of relationships because you change as a person and standards are different. The way you operate is different. What you'll tolerate is different. What you'll accept is different. That kind of thing. And right. So then you got to come out of a different fire. Okay. Right. And then your children, I'm speaking from experience, your children not understanding and being their ear is had by the other person. And you have to come out of that fire because sometimes you have to wait until they're old enough to actually understand, or you have to wait until they're old enough to get past the law, right? The legal age where I can actually share my side. Otherwise, I risk something that in our legal system is called alienation, where one parent convinces the other parent or convinces the child in whatever way that they're the best and the other one is the evil one. So they turn the kid against the other parent, right? In our system, at least locally here, if a parent is caught doing that, they lose the child. The child goes to the now. If it's true, that's not the same, okay? But what it's there for is so the parents don't use the child to, to create a problem or a barrier or whatever. Anyway, so interesting stuff, right? Lots and lots of ways to look at this. Okay. But the whole idea here is if you want to change, right, you have to, and some of you are listening in on LinkedIn and you're not in martial arts or whatever. Okay. And this is maybe you're in a leadership position, or you want to be, or you want to move into an executive level, or you're just trying to elevate your life and those kind of things. Right. So when I say train, I don't mean like martial arts training or even being in a formal program. You have to train yourself to mindfully and consistently do the new thing, no matter how freaking hard it is, until that new thing feels like the current thing. You know how that feels? You don't even think about it. It doesn't feel anything. It's just what I do. Right. Okay. We don't train until we get something right. We train until we can't get it wrong. We train until the thing, this goes for any skill you're working on. As long as that skill feels like something that you're doing, it's not at this zero level, this level of zero that Hatsumi Sensei has always talked about. The training will fall away when something becomes so much a part of who we are and how we do things as habit that one, we don't even think about how to do it. We might not even realize we're doing it, and we can't get it wrong. It becomes so much a part of who we are that we can't not do it. It's like breathing, right? See, you just probably thought about a breath you were taking or if I told you you don't think about your breathing until somebody gives you a cue to think about your breathing, like now you're really thinking about your breathing. Okay. But this whole podcast, you're probably not thinking about your breathing unless you've got some respiratory problem and you're struggling with your breathing. Okay. Or you weren't paying attention to me because you were doing some breathing exercise and training because I'm boring, in which case go do your breathing. Okay? It's okay. All right. James, any questions, comments, complaints?
Victor said a metaphor much like the transformation of raw iron to the steel used to make a shinken.
Yeah. Use whatever metaphor works for you. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I just decided to pull the phoenix because I thought that was a cool symbol of, our habits create the hell we live in. Okay. There's a speaking of metaphors, there's a metaphor in Tibetan philosophy, the Tibetan form of Mikyo. Mikyo is a Japanese word, Vajrayana, in the Far East. I guess it would be the Middle East, wouldn't it? India, Nepal, Tibet. Anyway, so it goes through the different realms, but if we struggle through something in an attempt to make things better, and we can't make change, the system is always trying to make things better, right? To minimize struggle. We're very adaptive, right? So if we can't escape or otherwise control the situation to alleviate the pain, okay, to escape hell, it's like being in a box or being like in a cage that you can't get out of. Eventually, to relieve the pressure, this is part of cognitive dissonance. I want free, but I can't get free. So the mind, the brain, will eliminate the option that requires more work or that causes more frustration for the option that does not, which is why it's easy to not go to training once we get home, unless I own the dojo. Okay? My dojo is not in my house, right? Because people are always looking for, well, do you have a class? Like I get off work here, by the time I get home and I really don't want to go back out again. And do you have a class? No, I don't. Okay. Or we have them here. Well, those days don't work for me. Well, there's a martial arts school there. Yeah, I know, but they don't do what you do. I understand. Okay. Hard choices all around. Okay. But what it does is it accepts the box. It accepts the cage. And then it starts to decorate the cage and justify why that's actually a really nice place. I got way too much shit in my head. Anyway, so anything else? Yeah, use whatever metaphor works for you.
He also said your internet is acting up. I haven't seen anything.
Really? I didn't change my video to 1020, and I didn't see anything pop across that says that my internet is... I normally get this little gray bar that comes across that says things are off. Yeah, I got a really strong signal because in my home office, because of the nature of what I do, the hub and everything is in this room, right? We've got the nodes branching out to other places in the house. But anyway, but I apologize if that is the case. I normally see it on my end, but James, you didn't see anything?
No, I haven't seen anything.
Uh-oh. See what happens when Florida gets a cold snap? It's okay. It's all right. So let's see. Let's jump back into things. Excuse me. today. There we go. All right. So what I want to talk about next is the controller of a lot of this change. Okay. We're going to be talking about something that Sensei Davis brought up during his breakout session yesterday that I decided to use in this podcast episode. Because if I just mention, here's the training things, here what the scrolls say or whatever, some people get like all warm and fuzzy because I say scroll or I'm using certain terminology. But do I really need to do it? I mean, for a lot of people, these things come across as optional. For others, it sounds like it's old ancient stuff that we really don't do that kind of stuff today. So, I need a more updated, modern, scientific way to do things. Or there's all kinds of things that people can use to dance around it. It can sound too woo-woo, whatever. Okay. And while people can still do it, they're going to have a harder time doing it when you carry this thing around with you as a part of your brain all the time. And this is the way it works. It's like gravity. You don't have to fucking believe in gravity, right? But if I sweep your legs out from under you, I promise you, gravity will grab your nary ass and yank you to the ground. Okay? It's just the way it works. You don't have to believe in it. Okay? You don't have to understand how it works. Okay? Up to this point, you may not know what the anterior mid cingulate cortex, or the AMCC, is, right? The anterior mid cingulate cortex, right? But it's this hub in your it's a part of your brain. It's a hardwired kind of thing. This is not a theoretical piece, whatever. It's a biological part, right? It's a hub, branches out to all these other things. Okay. So what I want to do for just a minute here is talk about the AMCC. We'll just kind of break it to short, right? And why it matters. Okay. And the short of it is that when you face failure or hardship, this specific part of your brain, okay, again, it's called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, look it up, is activated. This region helps you detect errors, stay motivated, and adapt to new situations. The more you engage with difficult tasks, the stronger this part of your brain becomes, making you better at handling future challenges. And some studies have actually shown that it doesn't get stronger, it actually physically gets bigger. They've actually done studies and, you can do MRIs and all kinds of stuff, right? People that have higher motivation, they're more sensitive to like errors and making sure that, they can change on the fly, they can detect problems sooner, that kind of stuff. Better control of stress and emotions. They're more adaptable or adaptive to new situations or sudden changes, right? They don't freak out and just go off the freaking deep end. They take more responsibility for their own choices and those kind of things, right? It's actually bigger in their brain. Those who are lazy make the same decisions all the time, try to avoid responsibility, are always stressed, paranoid, whatever, always feel like there's no motivation. They, in neurolinguistic programming, we would call them big chunkers, right? They process big things, right? There's big chunkers and there's small chunkers. Big chunkers, they see the room or they see the forest, but they miss the trees or they just easily bypass the trees because it's a tree, man, right? I'm looking at the forest. Okay. Small chunkers see the trees but can miss the forest. The trick is to train yourself on both sides so that you can flip a switch and, right? So anyway, the point is the more you engage with difficult tasks, the stronger this part of your brain becomes, the bigger, right? The ones who don't use it, not motivated, don't challenge themselves, don't engage in things. The other thing that's really, really interesting about this stuff is that they find that it gets stronger and gets bigger faster the more you engage in things that you don't want to do. If you like working out and you work out, the AMCC stays the same size. It's not being challenged. You're enjoying yourself. This kicks in when you have to solve a problem, engage with the fire, so to speak, right? That it's a challenge. And the more you don't want to do it, and you can't convince yourself like you like working out. So I'm just going to convince myself that like I don't like working out. I don't want to be doing these presses. I don't want to be doing these crunches. Nope. No. This is tied to emotional regulation of emotions, all that kind of stuff, right? The more you don't want to do the thing and force yourself to do it anyway, the more active this gets and the bigger it gets, because you're in a survival mode, right? You have to do this thing or there's failure in whatever sense. And we are wired from the cave for survival. Okay. So what is it? Why does it matter? Right. Again, it's there to help us face failure or hardship or struggle, that kind of thing, right? It helps you recognize when things are going wrong, and it pushes you to find a solution. Okay. So people that only do the same kata the same way, or they do the same variations off the kata the same way, when we hit a wall and can't think of other ways to do things, right? We've got a couple of standards and we can't think of any others, either because they were given to us and so we've got them memorized, or because that's the limit of our conceptualization or creative functions. It doesn't get any bigger. Okay. And actually it'll start to shrink, because while you're practicing and you're training, you're doing it at the same level with the same things all the time. And there's no struggle. There's no coordination problem that has to be gotten over. There's no sudden change. There's no surprise, nothing like that requires this center, which is a survival center, to do anything. Okay. So the more you engage with difficult tasks, especially ones that force you out of your comfort zone, the stronger and bigger this part of your brain becomes. And then over time, this rewiring process makes you, as a side effect, more resilient, more adaptable, and better equipped to handle challenges. Whether they're on the mat, they're in a relationship, they're on the job at work, whatever. Daily life is daily life, right? There's a major change that happens, right? Spouse dies, somebody attack, whatever. Okay. So a couple of examples, right? Here's one that has to do with like self-sabotage. Okay. I'm gonna separate these into like won't do's and can do's. Okay. When it comes to self-sabotage, the people that have a weaker or smaller AMCC, right? Here's their won't do, right? They often give up when they encounter hardship because they've been conditioned to avoid discomfort and failure. Okay? I was conditioned to avoid discomfort and failure. I thought if I get involved in martial arts, and it was going to be easy, and I was going to impress my teacher, and I was going to just fly to black belt and all that kind of stuff. And it was just one struggle after another, and like I would demonstrate something, and as a part of a big test, and my teacher would come up and say, "I don't think we're going to move you forward just yet. What I need you to work on is this, this, and this." Right? Hurt like hell, right? Because ego said, "Damn it, I know how to do it, and it's right." And right, how dare he fail me? Okay, except that I trust this guy with my life. I better. It's freaking martial arts. We literally put our hands or our lives in the hands of our teachers until we're at a stage where we can do it ourselves, not think we can do it, because a 5-year-old thinks that it knows everything as well. I know, got a 5-year-old grandson, really smart. However, it's 5. The area of the world that he knows and the experiences that he has consistently are not survival based. Right. So I had to bite my tongue, swallow the pride, and go back and practice things that I thought I already had, but with an eye on figuring out where it was fucked up. I mean, he said, you need to work on these things. You're doing this. I need you to do this. Right. And then when I tried to do that thing, well, that's not even possible. How the hell am I supposed to do that? So, and we didn't have videos, right? I had static pictures to work off of and memory from seminars and stuff. Right. And it might take a little while. It might take another training session or two and go, I don't know what it is that you're calling for. Cause I can't make my body do that thing. And then show this little thing. I try. Oh, okay. Well, except that now I'm like falling over on my side instead of going over the shoulder. Right. And I'm not landing on my feet. I thought you just wanted me to do a forward roll. I rolled over. I get back up. It's all good. No. You have to roll over to your feet. So standing or fighting from that kneeling position is doable from the end of the roll. We don't roll over and then get up like a damn toddler. That's not ninja skill, right? But we don't always have to stand up either. But we do have to get from point A to point B as quickly as possible. And your body needs to be in a certain position so that gravity produces the roll. And the body moving in the roll creates the inertia to get the trailing half up. And there's certain things that you do with your body as you're coming out of the roll, not with your legs, with your head and upward body, that brings your body over your feet, right? Very, very different. Right? So eventually just working through that stuff and getting more bumps and bruises and shit with things I thought I already had. Anyway, right? But if I had avoided all that stuff, and I had a teacher that I trusted, okay? I guess the other benefit for me was that there were only 3 people in America at that point that were teaching. One was in Germantown, Ohio, just outside of Dayton. One was in Atlanta, Georgia, or outside of Atlanta, Georgia, and one was in California. And I was stationed in West Germany. So had to figure that shit out. So now people can change Bujinkan or Ninjutsu teachers or Budo Taijutsu teachers at the same rate that people change churches. If the teacher is not teaching what they believe to be true or want to be learning, they just got another teacher. Same reason people move and change churches. Well, the minister's not really teaching what I believe to be true. Oh, okay. Well, apparently you're more of the voice of God than they are. So where's your church? I don't know. Anyway, on the can-do side, okay, when it comes to self-sabotage, right? We don't self-sabotage. Well, what we do is we sabotage the current self for a better, more stronger, more resilient self. So consciously engage with a difficult task, knowing it's rewiring old patterns into new habits that lead to growth. It's supposed to suck. It's supposed to feel weird. It's supposed to not be natural. We're supposed to be uncoordinated. If we're not, we're still within our comfort zone, and all we're doing is a little variation of what we normally do. We're not doing something different that will grow our skill set, whether it's communication, whether it's how we get a particular job done, whether it's uke the gosh, whatever. Okay, consciously engage with the difficult task, knowing that doing it again and again and again, consistently over time, forces the brain and the body wiring to rewire. Right? If we don't, nothing happens. And then we get to be satisfied with our delusions. Okay. So again, if you haven't already done it, especially for those of you over on the audio only stuff like the Apple Podcast and Spotify, and I don't know if you can do it on Pandora or not, but that'd be cool. Google Play, wherever we are, right? If I don't know how it works over there, if you like, share, recommend, whatever goes on in those things. James, do you know what they're able to do on the audio things? Is it still just a like and share kind of thing, or what's the system like over on those other? I don't listen to a lot of podcasts. I mean, I do. They're just in specific formats.
Usually the audio stuff, it's like leave a review, like a 5-star review, I think.
Well, I'm not asking for a 5-star review. Review it as you see fit. Okay. But if you're leaving less than what, 3.5, I would have to ask why the fuck you keep showing up. Okay. So anyway, yeah. So anyway, okay, I'm just going to keep trucking through here. So there are 3 ways that hardship and failure produce growth. Okay. And again, we've talked about the science, how the brain does its thing. Okay. But I want to focus on failure and hardship and the process. Okay. Really quickly here. So failure sharpens adaptability. When things don't go as planned, you're forced to adapt. This process strengthens your brain's ability to recognize problems, adjust strategies, and make decisions in real time under pressure. Skills that are critical in both martial arts. And when I say martial arts, martial means warfare. So self-protection, right? And life. I need to be able to adapt on the fly, not stop my partner and go, oh shit, and then pre-think an answer to the new problem so that when they throw the punch, I can carry out a script. No. We just did this last week, right? James, didn't we just do this last week where I covered like escaping to safety and fixing, getting back on track with the kata, or abandoning that technique for the one that's actually happening. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I came up with a little mnemonic. I think it was either Friday night or Saturday morning from Daikomyo-sai, right? It was fix it, as in like flee, right? So flee it, fix it, or fuck it, as in fuck it, like give up the technique and do the next thing, okay? And like lots of people remember that. So flee it, fix it, or fuck it. And I don't mean, I mean like just give up, fuck it, get out, do the thing that's really happening. Okay. So, and that's when something changes. The first thing I teach all students is that as soon as it isn't working, as soon as you run into resistance, that you have the need or feel the need to force it, let go and bail out to Kamae. I don't care if you step, leap, or roll to Kamae, go to Kamae out of his range and reset the fight to 0. If you can't do that, then that's the default. If you can't fix a technique, like I'm doing it, he goes to jam it up, right? And we do something to break his strength that is allowing the resistance and then reclaim the technique. Okay. If we can't do that, like he's already well into turning it around, or we did something like that on Friday with a Mushadori, where at different points in time, he screwed it up. And so in one, we got out. In another one, we couldn't get out. We couldn't get our arm. We couldn't extricate our arm from his because of the way he jammed it up. He trapped our arm. And he's about to do a Musodori or something like that to us. And so what I taught people to do was a couple of little movements that broke his form structure, legs, spine, that kind of thing, that disengaged his shoulder. It took that strength away, and then we could reclaim the Mushadori. Then there was one where it happened at a different time, and he was breaking free. And so instead of holding on to it, because of the way he was moving our arm, we went from a Mushadori up and over his arm and then back underneath, and then stepped in to do a Ganseki. Okay. But again, they have to be in context. When you first learn them, they're just when you first learn these escapes, they're just another kata. But the goal is to do it with more resistance and faster. Take your time to do it over time so that you can do it by feel and not with your left brain, because you can't think that fast at speed, at full fight speed. Okay. So again, failure sharpens adaptability, right? And this is something we're going to be, I'm going to be talking about during Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday. We're going to be looking at this, at creating training drills and training scenarios where the point of the training is that failure occurs so that you're forced to adapt, right? It's not a model. This is really what randori is about. Okay, there is a form to it, but it's just enough to keep you within a certain paradigm, so to speak, so that it's not just like an all-out sparring match, right? Okay. Anyway, so failure sharpens adaptability. Number 2, hardship builds resilience. The more you endure hardship without giving up, the more resilient you become. Okay. You're just able to take more pressure, take more people not liking you, calling you names, or whatever, right? Okay. Over time, you develop an inner strength that helps you push through adversity, even when things get tough. I would, if I change my notes here, it should say, especially when things get tough, very tough, like so tough you don't think that you're going to make it. Okay. It's just like when you're doing push-ups or you're doing presses or whatever. I do air squats, and you get to a point in my brain, it's feeling the legs, and I've got arthritis and all this kind of stuff. And the brain starts going, not sure how many. And then I just push through that and go 10 more. I get close to my 10. And okay, 5 more. Okay. Do I want to do those? No, but I'm going to push myself past that. I will know when I hit a point because a muscle will twitch or something like that, or a knee will, it won't shift or anything, but there's a certain feel to it that I'm like, okay, right. I said 5, 3, good. Right. Because I don't want to break myself, but at the same time, right. I've been talking about the brain the entire time, but the muscles do the same thing. What makes muscles stronger? Pushing the muscles past their ability to do work at that level. When we exercise, we break down, we tear muscle, get these micro tears in it. Right? And then while we're sleeping, right, the body sets about fixing a bunch of this stuff. And so it repairs those. Okay. It takes a while when you first start an exercise program for growth to occur, because the body doesn't know that you're serious. So it fixes it to the previous level. But the more you do it, the body gets the hint that it needs to fix it to the level that of the work that you're doing. That's why if you start on a new job, I remember doing a job at a warehouse one time when I first got out of the military. Man, first week, holy shit, right? I mean, I thought I was active like in the military, but it was just the types of things that I was doing. It wasn't like I wasn't active in the military. These were just different patterns. I was reaching up and I was doing stuff that, in the military as a military policeman, right? Somebody's right here and we're going to the ground and I'm restraining him and getting cuffs on him and stuff like that. So all the work is in this direction. Now I'm doing work like this direction, and I'm moving certain things around in different directions and taxing things. But within a week and a half, 2 weeks, it just got easier and easier and easier. And then, a day started, a day ended. It's no big deal. Often people's workouts end up feeling like that. They go to the gym, they do the workout. It feels like they worked out. Everything was good. But then they can't understand why nothing gets bigger. It's because you're doing the same sets. You're doing the same things. You're doing the same routine, right? There was an old saying that I shared with people before that actually this is the literal sense of it. A strong man can help a weak man get stronger. All he does is give him his routine. But a strong man can't get stronger by using the same routine because he's plateaued. He has to change it drastically. Okay? It needs to feel the same. Whatever the new routine is has to feel the same as it did when he first started. Otherwise, it won't drive change. Okay? So again, and over time, you end up developing these side effects like this inner strength that just helps you push through, right? Stay more calm under pressure. It's just a part of the process. I talked about this before when I was a military policeman. I would be stationed at a new place, and the first thing I'd do for the first week when I went out on patrol was get myself lost purposely. I would turn down streets and stuff. No idea. I'd turn down another one, whatever. The plan was to get lost, okay? And just keep driving around. Eventually, the brain produces a mind map of the area, and things become more and more familiar and that kind of stuff, right? And now, did frustration occur? Ooh, yeah. Because if I got called to a scene or something like that, and there were other times where, like, I'd think, okay, I'm going to head back in this other direction. And I'd make multiple turns, or I'd go in a direction where I thought I needed to go. And I'm just getting farther and farther away from it and stuff. And I backtrack to a point that I remember being at where I knew where I was. And then I'd go back from there. We'll try again tomorrow, or try again later this afternoon, whatever. Frustration, fear sometimes, because, I could get my ass in a sling if I got into an accident or left my patrol area, all kinds of things, right? So, but that was the hardship. The fastest way for me to learn my patrol area was not just to go where the guy who taught me the patrol area was and to keep doing the same patterns. It was to purposely get lost. The brain is forced to figure out where things are without a map. Okay. At number 3, the process forges the indomitable spirit, the Fumetsu no Seishin. Okay. Fumetsu no Seishin. Okay. Each time you face failure, adapt, and keep going, you're building not just a skill, but a mindset. An indomitable spirit can handle whatever life throws at you. Well, Sensei, what about something that's going to kill you? Well, then no worries. Okay. But what serves me more? Worrying about what's going to kill me, worrying about what's going to be tough, worrying about what's going to be somebody's not going to like or whatever, or I am adaptable, I am capable, right? And if there's one thing I can trust about myself, no matter whether I'm ill, I'm, aging, I'm broken, or I can never do the Taiden side of this stuff ever again, is that if you present me with a problem, you drop me into a foreign land, whatever, I will figure things out. I will figure out the language. I will figure out where things are. I will figure out the culture. I will solve the problem. I am absolutely 100% sure that even if I'm absolutely lost, I will figure it out. Because it's just a puzzle. It's just a problem. Okay. It may hurt. It may take a while. I'm obviously going to run into frustration, confusion, all kinds of things. The one thing I know is that's a part of the problem, or that's a part of the process. Me resisting against those things is a part of the problem. Me resisting against those things is throwing gasoline on a fire that, if I just took a moment to look at it and understand what's burning, I would know what to throw on it to extinguish it. Okay. So, come at this from a couple of different directions here very quickly. But basically what we're looking at is the reality of failure, right? The reality of failure. We're not going to get around these things. Okay. So while I had originally intended to go into this stuff much, much more, I'm just going to toss a couple of things out at you very, very quickly here, give you some things to stew on. You can do the research, right? I think I've given you enough foundation here as to why this is important. And then we'll continue on with Whiteboard Wednesday as we look at tactics for training so that we can be more like this in a self-protection situation and take our physical martial arts training to a higher level. And then that in and of itself will springboard to, or Friday's masterclass springboards off of that. And we'll be demonstrating, we'll be working on some of these things. I'll be giving students certain types of drills and whatnot where they're going to adapt. And yep, they're going to fail. And yep, it's going to be hard. Okay? But if we expect that everything's going to be easy as soon as we do it, then what's that old saying? If it were easy, everybody would do it. But we're not doing it because it's easy. And most of us, me included, are doing this because it's not something everybody can do. Something I can be proud of. Right? I don't want to be like everybody else. Even in the martial arts world. If I wanted to be like everybody else, I would have just chosen the place that was closest to my home. Not that was hundreds or thousands of miles away to get to a teacher or the teacher that I was going to train with. Well, since I can't do that, see, I can't get to you because it's too far. I can't get time off. I can't. Okay, fantastic. I will nurture your small AMCC. I mean, after all, that's the help you want. No, see, what I wanted was for you to come to me, for you to make it easy for me. Me making it easy for you is contradictory to the whole fucking process. Okay? But by all means, be like the church people. Find another instructor, another minister, whatever, that will tell you what you want to hear. But that doesn't cause growth. It causes temporary satisfaction. Okay? Because somebody's giving me something. That's another area in the brain. If something has a zero sum value, right? It's free. We don't value it. We don't, not for very long. We may. Oh, look what I'm getting. Oh, okay, go. Okay. It's just like YouTube videos. People binge watch them. How many people get up and actually work the technique for weeks or months? Not, well, I tried it out. Fantastic. Hope you luck out if somebody attacks you and you try that dumb shit. Because all those techniques, including mine that are on YouTube, are shit. I don't mean that they're wrong. They work for the person who's demonstrating them. They're shit to, like, if I see another one that I've never seen before, it's shit. It's my job to turn that into something of value for me. Just because he can do it doesn't mean I can do it. And just because I memorized it doesn't mean that when I'm spooked on the street and somebody surprised me, that I'm going to remember any of this stuff if I've committed it to memory. Going back to that shuriken throwing sword draw thing with Sensei Whistler, we were doing things pretty quickly. Okay. Because he'll counter my stuff. That's why I choose him as an uke. That's why I choose all my ukes. 1, they'll land a shot. 2, like they won't pull their punches. Okay. And 2, if they can get out of the lock, hold, throw, or technique, they will. I know I chose them, but I always say that their ability, like he's very wiry, right? I was calling him the weasel, right? Their ability to challenge my skill sets is the reason that my skill sets are what they are. Because I don't get somebody who just goes along with it. I'm not the guy with the ki right in the middle of the technique that's failing on my part because he keeps challenging it and I go, take a fall. And then, believe that's on a video somewhere. I'd give you a name, but I don't want somebody to come after me with a lawyer. Anyway, right? So, again, we've already talked about how failure and hardship grow the brain, right? Remember, every time you engage with hardship, your brain is rewiring itself to make you stronger. But it's just like working out. You work legs, and then you don't work legs for another week. Your muscles are back to where they were. Right? I think, what is it? It's if you don't do the same exercise for more than 2 or 3 days, your muscles reset to the start point. You reset to 0. Training with techniques works the same. Okay. So it has to be consistent. It has to be over time. It has to be like that survival mechanism. Like we didn't have a social safety net of everybody else taking care of the hard stuff for us. Okay. So the AMCC helps you adapt. It helps you learn from mistakes and stay motivated. And over time, this rewiring process leads to real lasting growth. Okay? Just like somebody who's in a relationship with somebody who defaults to yelling and whatnot, right? Very quickly, you learn what subjects to not bring up, how to walk on eggshells, all that kind of stuff. And it feels normal. Feels like, well, if honey ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. Really? Does that work in the other direction? Oh, no. Yeah, make it work in the other direction. Yeah, see, this is going to be a challenge. Okay, good. Fantastic. Because I thought you entered into a mutually beneficial relationship. No? Oh, my mistake. I apologize. Okay. So, again, accepting the suck, right? And learning anyway. It's going to suck in the beginning. One of the hardest things for people to accept is that when you start something new, you're going to suck at it. Okay? But mastery only comes when you stick with it long enough to get better. And giving up good for better. Giving up better for better. Right? So you're going to suck. The goal is to do things consistently enough so that you suck less today than you did yesterday, and you'll suck less tomorrow than you do today, but only with consistency. Okay? And then we've got this Fumetsu no Seishin, right? This indomitable spirit. Ultimately, this process of embracing failure and hardship leads to what the Shinobi called Fumetsu no Seishin, indomitable spirit, right? This is the mindset that allows you to keep going, rise after every fall, and thrive, not just survive, thrive in the face of adversity. In Japanese, we have this phrase, nana kurobi yaoki. Okay? Nana, 7, kurobi, like to fall down. Ya is another way to say 8, and oki is to stand up, to arise. It has nothing to do with 7 or 8. Right? The second number has to be bigger, but it's about success is born of getting up one more time than you've fallen down. You're supposed to fail a lot. Okay? And it was just a story. It's a what do you call them? A parable about the Buddha having been born. His mom gave birth to him standing up, holding onto the branch of a tree. He was born standing up, took his first 7 steps. With each step, a lotus flower bloomed up under his foot. There's a whole bunch of analogies to that and what it's supposed to stand for, right? It's a reference point. Do some people believe that was actually true? Yeah, because they need to, right? We're not born standing up. How many times, if you're a parent, how many times did your kids fall down, you teaching them how to walk? How many times your kids fall down after they quote unquote learn to walk? How many times have you fallen down and you know how to walk? So, right? We have to create the fall downs. And you have 2 choices. You wait until the world throws them at you, or you got out of your way, which is how we do it in Mikyo. You got out of your way to create and generate opportunities for failure. Okay? Your brain will thank you. And all of these things that everybody is struggling to do or deluding themselves that they already have. Calmness under pressure until there's pressure or certain types of pressure, right? The indomitable spirit until the going gets too tough that I don't want to risk it. All kinds of things, right? They grow because it's a side effect, right, of the AMCC. Okay. So, let's go ahead and we'll just wrap this up for the moment, right? So, I'm going to ask for a small favor, right? And that is, if you found this episode valuable, I'd appreciate it if you could recommend it to someone you know, a friend, a training partner, or even someone who might benefit from hearing about how to grow through failure. Okay, so let's spread the message, help more people develop their indomitable spirit. Because wouldn't the world be great if everybody was working on personal development? Okay, but don't go around like trying to nail the whole forcing salvation on people. It's like missionaries showing up in the jungle and trying to nail shoes onto the feet of the natives, right? Because it's good for you. Okay, it's not about that. Okay, so see how things go, and then I have something coming out. I announced this over. I think it was it this weekend, or did I do it on the Friday call? I don't remember, but I am finishing up a new book. It's a very short book. It's an ebook, 15, 20 or so pages. Once it's finished editing, who knows? It'll be under 25 pages. And so there's a whole lot in this art that is just not being sufficiently covered for people. I mean, there are snippets in Hatsumi Sensei's books. There are references that he makes during seminars and the recorded stuff you find on YouTube. There are things that are out there, but they tend to get jumped over to get to the physical techniques or to get to the cool tactics or to get to the ninja history or whatever. But this is the stuff that makes a ninja, right? And in the Togakure Ryu's curriculum, the very first of the Ninjutsu Hake, the 18 areas of training, okay, is the Seishin Teki Kyoyo, okay? Spiritual refinement, personal clarity, personal development. It's very difficult to kind of tag a specific name on this because within the Seishin Teki, there are a minimum of 11 areas of study and skill sets that are developed. Kijutsu Tenkan Ho. I know everybody thinks they know what it is. Fudoshin, Kyojoshin, sorry. There's a whole bunch. There's 11, right? And so there's a little bit of an introduction to it in the book, and then I go through these 11 areas of study and give a martial and a life reference point, okay, for how it might be used, okay. But then I got thinking about this, and I thought, a question that's going to pop up is, how is this related to this, like the samurai 7 virtues, right? So I'm adding a chapter or a little section on the 7 virtues, which that section may throw people off because everybody has a poster, everybody has a meme, everybody has whatever that has these 7 virtues, right? I mean, everybody knows what the 7 virtues are. And see, I had to address that because those 7 virtues changed based on era, based on region, based on whether or not it was a spoken or unspoken, written or unwritten dictate from a daimyo, whether it was part of a clan's scrolls and their principles or ideals, what era was it done in, was it, I already named a political influence or a leadership or authority influence, but it could have been a spiritual influence because there were certain eras where those virtues, sometimes were 7, sometimes were 8, sometimes there were more, sometimes there was only 4, right? But sometimes they were conditioned if the guiding philosophy was Confucianism, or if it was Buddhism, like Zen, or if it was Shinto. All of those things changed it. So to keep it simple, I put that in, but I also thought, oh shit, this is going to lead to another question and another problem that could be confusion. And that is, well, like, one, how does this relate to the Seishin, right? The Ninja Seishin Teki. What's the difference? Are there similarities? Are there differences? Just little things, right? So I am, I did this as a part of a live class with my inner circle group, the Friday coaching group that meets on Friday mornings online. So I did the training with them to explain these things. And then what I'm doing is editing that down into an audio course that if anybody gets an ebook, if they want it, there's that possibility that you could add that on or whatever. Not very much. This is in the low area of things, right? But this area of training is so underserved or underappreciated or it's not covered very well, right? And there's a lot of people that are following me and stuff that would really like to do like the mental or the spiritual or whatever side of the ninja's training, the philosophical side of the ninja's training, the life mastery stuff and all that, but don't want to approach Mikyo. They don't want to get involved in that kind of stuff, which is perfectly fine. So I decided it was time for something like this to come out. So if you want to dive deeper into and to better understand the Seishin Teki Kyoyo, right? And again, in both samurai and shinobi traditions, okay? One side, you've got the samurai's virtues. On the ninja side, you've got the Seishin Teki, okay? At least in the Togakure school, right? So, but in both realms, in both traditions, mastering the mind and spirit was absolutely essential, okay? So again, we have this. I'm leading off with the Seishin Teki because we're all focused on Ninjutsu, right? So the development of mental and spiritual strength to complement physical skill, right? So if you want to dive deeper into the principles of both, okay? So in the book, there's 11 areas. Now, and it's subjective because there are certain things that could be put in there, like the Mikyo and stuff like that. But I left those things out. These were just, ways of developing the mind, ways of developing the spirit, that kind of thing that didn't cross what we might call, and I don't like this term anyway, religious things where people feel like they have to do that kind of thing. Okay. So it's the core 11. And then it'll include just a listing of the samurai 7 virtues and just a little one-liner kind of thing. So, but anybody wants to take that farther and right understand in the audio course, I go into the 7 virtues, and then what I do is I relate them to the Seishin Teki Kyoyo. So I know we've got 7 on one side, I've got 11 on the other. There are 8 of them that seem to cross or relate, that seem to be identical if you're only looking at translations. So what I've done is set it up so we can look at how they're similar and how they differ in application. Okay. And so, again, this Seishin Teki Kyoyo ebook, my goal is to have this out and released on Wednesday, Thursday at the absolute latest, but I'm not aiming for Thursday, I'm aiming for Wednesday. And then the audio program will be available as well. So if somebody wants to grab that when they get the ebook, that's fine. If not, no harm, no foul. But the point is, right, both together, right, the ebook and the audio program, they explore the 7 virtues. They explore the 11 areas of study under Seishin Teki, and it's a foundation. It's a place to start in understanding how they can help you cultivate resilience, adaptability, and an indomitable spirit. Okay. So in closing, just recap some points, and then we'll open it up to questions and comments. 1, failure and hardship are not obstacles. They're actually the keys to growth. It's not about learning all this stuff so that you can handle failure and hardship. Failure and hardship is crucial to developing the skill sets that allow you to handle failure and hardship at the same level and higher and more. Okay. 2, facing challenges rewires your brain physically, biologically, making you stronger and more adaptable. Okay. And 3, consistent effort over time helps you develop this Fumetsu no Seishin, this indomitable spirit that makes you capable of handling anything that life throws at you. Okay. So again, this is just the start, right? We've got those 3 areas of training, right? We've got the Taiden, the Kuden, and the Shinden. Kuden is knowledge. Shinden, right? Life application, making me a better person. Kuden, right? This is a name for it. So it's kind of a hybrid between the 2. And then I split the Taiden or the Kuden and Taiden between Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday, where we discuss strategies and tactics. And then Friday, it all comes together, right? Mostly tied in, but of course, all of this stuff is underpinning it. Okay. So hopefully I'll see you for those things. Okay. Anyway, you can't sign up for the Friday's masterclass until I get through until I'm doing the Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday, because I want to make sure that I have things fleshed out before know what I'm doing specifically for the class. But on Wednesday, give or take about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Eastern time, you'll be able to sign up for the Friday class. And for those of you who are constantly doing it a la carte, um, you can double up on your training, and you can get a whole bunch of extra materials and bonus stuff and whatnot. I think it's like, I don't know, $1,300 worth of extra stuff, training and resources and whatnot that we're giving with it. But I get this program called the Nimpo Masterclass, and you don't just get the Friday masterclass from the dojo, that and the recording, right? But you also get our Tuesday class as well. And there's some extra little like invitations to live training and extra programs and stuff that come along with it as well. So anyway, if you sign up for the Friday class, I think it automatically gives you the option, right? You can try the program for like $12 for 2 weeks or something like that, and then it'll start charging you after that if you want to stay. But either way, right? That's up to you. All right. That being said, let me pop back over here. All right. James has been sitting patiently waiting for me to shut the hell up. So he can tell me he wants me to talk some more. Anyway, right. So what do we got, James? Oh, before you tell me about anybody else's questions, what was the biggest thing that popped out for you over Daikomyo side? Because I called it secrets, but a lot of that stuff was not necessarily secrets. It was obvious, or it was a way to look at it differently, right? But hopefully it wasn't like most people approach the art where I want to fight like everybody else. I want to be better at it than that. This was very different. Like the first technique we did on Friday night, people have probably seen the technique, right? It's the we did a hybrid between the two. I used one form to do right and left sides. I didn't split it the way it is in the scrolls, but we did the Migi Santo Tonko Nogata, right? So the right side escaping rat. We have the coolest martial names for things, right? Form, right? But we put it into a context where it was, remember, if a ninja has to draw his sword, if you have to do your physical techniques, you've been caught. They saw through your disguise and impersonation. Right? Or you were a chunin or a jonin, high level, and they, caught you. And so you're in a moment where you might go, shit, and break to run. And as you turn to run, they snag your arm, and then they're yanking you while yelling for their backup. Or we put it into a context of, we walk into a store and we walk in and there's 3 guys with guns at the teller. We don't see the guy next to the door. We decide, shit, we're going to cut and run, go out, and we'll make a phone call to call 911 or whatever. And we turn to go, and this guy grabs me and then wants to drag me to where all the other hostages are sitting. Okay. So we looked at it from that kind of a context, instead of it just being another step by step by step. And then your nipples get hard. You feel all warm and fuzzy because you did another technique. Anyway, so what were some of the things that really jumped out for you that really highlighted the ninja's different way of handling things?
Well, I think one thing that we started with on Friday was the idea that if you're in a situation where physical skill is needed, then things have went very badly and you screwed up. And
this is not a one-on-one thing. I'm not looking to duke this thing out. And all those Santo Tonko kata, we didn't do because I didn't want a whole bunch of bodies rolling around and whatnot. If we'd have done like a spring or fall camp and done it, I'd have had people literally rolling away because we'd have been in the field and had more room and all that. But every one of those kata, after you throw the Mitsubishi or the Shuriken, you freaking roll behind an obstacle and freeze. You burrow in under a car, whatever. You stop freaking moving, because if you're a moving target, the brain picks up on the guy running away, right? Lots of people have been tackled by cops because they were jogging right now, had no idea that a crime went off. And here they are running, And the cops take off after him because, right, you ran from the scene. No, I ran through the scene. Well, I don't know that yet until I question you. So sorry for the scrapes and bruises. Anyway, yeah. So
that and the
if you
whole
lose
idea
your
of,
physical skills, you are fucked. And you
yeah,
need to get out.
the
And go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, just that whole idea that, we learn all these physical techniques and whatnot, and there's this whole like finishing idea to it, to like shut this person down if necessary. But there's times where that might not be the best option. The best option is to steal enough time and redirect his focus quickly that you can disappear and just be gone. I mean, it could be a situation where, even like you're on vacation or something and you just happen to stroll into the wrong area in, another country or something. The last thing you want to do is be involved in an international incident. And it's just much better to not leave somebody in a pile, but just disappear.
But you also don't know where the safe places are. You don't
Right.
know where the police are. You don't know. It's not like being a local, right?
Mhm.
It's you have no lay of the land or a very cursory lay of the land. And I also added to that, remember, because even when the ninja are engaged in physical action, it's more of a hit and run guerrilla warfare kind of thing. But either way, you have to avoid a situation where they can identify you, right? So it wasn't just about doing it. How the hell do you get back to the clan, i.e., your family, without being recognized to be identified later or followed back, and then everybody's in deep shit, right? In Togakure Ninjutsu, the secrecy of the clan, the survivability of the clan, in this case, your family, right, is the most important thing. This is not the same as Bujutsu. It's an aspect of it, but this takes it so much farther because there are way more variables and considerations that have to be taken care of or paid attention to. Which reminds me, I almost forgot. There are a bunch of you that you pre-ordered your video recordings of Daikomyo Sai last week. Victor and a bunch of these guys. We got through everything. It's going to take, James, I think we estimate it takes about a week for you to trim off the nothing's going on at the beginning before we start the training from when we turn on the recording. Same thing, breaks and whatever, trims those things out and whatnot. But you get everything else you get, right? They're the raw recording. So if I make a correction to a student, but I haven't called everybody back together to demonstrate all that stuff, right? So it's the raw recordings. I decided that it's going to take about a week to get that stuff up onto the dashboard so that people can download it and enjoy it and all that kind of stuff. So I think it was about 2:30 today. I sent out the email. I'm only going to send one or two more reminder emails, but I opened the doors for 48 hours for anybody that still wants them. You can go to the same place. James, I don't know if you know the thing that you can put in the chat there for people. But I also added a two-pay payment plan just in case money's tight, that kind of stuff. But it's one when you order it and one next week, because I have to always worry about somebody. How do I say this nicely? Stealing, right? They'll sign up for something on a payment plan and then decide they're going to jack us, which never makes sense to me, right? I'm going to fuck over somebody that I wouldn't want to meet in an alley. It's kind of like people that throw these little flaming things on comments on the videos and stuff. I'll kick your ass. I'm going to come over there and do whatever. And shit, my address and phone number and contact information is everywhere. I see stuff like that. The first thing this ninja does is click on their profile name and gather all the information about them. And when it happens on YouTube, then I end up laughing because, well, it's okay that they know where I am. I'm easy to find, right? But this asshole that is going to make all their comments, no profile picture. They're using a bullshit profile name, no contact information. And the biggest thing of all, no freaking videos that show any proof that they know what the hell they're talking about. But it still comes back to I'm easy to find. So, but it is what it is, right? So, but I did open it for 48 hours. The timer's running, right? If you signed on or tried to get them Friday night, Saturday, anywhere over the weekend or whatever, down where the thing was, you'd have seen this big old white block that said you missed out. Right? And that's what's going to happen. Well, less than 48 hours now. So, but if anybody wants them, they're available. If not, no harm, no foul. But later on, once we bundle these things, once they go to post-production and get edited down, and there's all kinds of extra time and effort and other expenses and whatnot, they're not going to be the $67 that I'm charging for 10 hours of video. Oh, and what else is included on there? Not just the stuff that I taught. Part of that 10 hours is 4 breakout sessions by 4 guest instructors that covered a wide range of things. And I also left on, we didn't cut it out. We didn't make a separate video that only people that were there would get it. You actually get the training for and the ability to walk yourself through the GOMA goal setting ceremony. It's an active meditation. So we're not cutting anything out. It's all there. All right. Did you get it up on the chat, James? They have it?
It's going up right now.
Okay. Can you say it out loud so that the people on audio only, well, I don't even know if they'll see it by the time, or they'll hear it by the time the bots, what do you call them? Get it listed up on Apple Podcasts. But either way, it's in the chat for anybody that wants it. And if not, no harm, no foul. Okay. My job is to teach. My job is to help. My job is not to learn it for you. God, can you imagine me learning it for me and somebody else? What's your personality type? What's your context? I can't make myself taller or shorter, so that's out, right? So anyway, what else? Anything else? Any questions, comments? Let's out with questions and comments at the moment. My daughter she was exhausted on Sunday afternoon.
Terrence has one, says, I suffered some when trying to take on more responsibility, specifically project managing in real estate. I dealt with a lot of shame. I wasn't prepared for that, and I felt exposed whenever I failed.
You don't have to answer this. Did you keep going? Did you keep working it? Did you restart, go again, restart, go again? Okay, because I hear several fires going on right there, right? Resilience. I get it. This is not easy. And we weren't taught this in school. Most of this stuff, we weren't taught in school. Or people told you it was important. You need to be more confident. You need to have more discipline, right? You need to see your own self-value. How the hell do you do that? Through experiences that challenge you so that you can produce results and have skills that you can be proud of. Okay. What else? Is that it?
Just about. Greg had to bounce out. He had to go. He said he had to go to work. It was a very interesting talk.
Cool.
And that looks like it's it.
All right. Well, you know what's going on. So, Whiteboard Wednesday, it's going to be more about the strategies and tactics will be more about things to integrate into training and approaches to take, right? And then Friday, during that Friday masterclass, what I'll be sharing with students are randori drills and things that actually create. It actually manufactures failure that we have to adapt to, that we have to figure out. Okay, we're going to trigger that that anterior cortex, right? To get fatter, to get bigger, right? So we can have the skills that we say we want, but it's not an academic process. It's not. The physical training, learning the techniques and learning the skills and the rolling and all that kind of stuff, that's not what does it. It's doing those things when you don't feel like it, doing those things when you don't want to. That's the fast track. Doing them to the point of exhaustion and then doing it some more. Tanemura Sensei, the founder of the Genbukan, right? He talked about when he was coming up through training, when he practiced, he would practice to the point of regurgitation. You know what that means, right? Throwing up. And then he would practice more because the point was to be able to keep going when you didn't think you could keep going. David Hoggins, right? Goggins. Okay. Yeah. He used to be a Navy SEAL, all that kind of stuff, right? He's run marathons on a broken foot, on a broken ankle, right? Like, and then he's done one marathon and then like jumped into another one, like either hours later or the next day, and long ass things, right? But you can look him up on YouTube and whatnot. He has a whole bunch of, we'll call them inspirational talks, and it's all about like how to. It's not about how to push yourself through, like how to make yourself do things. Most of it's about like, look, you either want to be a quitter or you don't, or you want to, right? This has to be something that the end result is more important than any freaking pain, discomfort, frustration, whatever. And if it's not, then sit the hell down and stop talking. Most of these guys that are at that level, their compassion doesn't look like what most people think compassion looks like. But compassion is not about being nice. Empathy and sympathy are about being nice. Compassion is about giving somebody what they need to move forward. And some of them aren't as nice as me. I listen to them. But until somebody's like, really close student, then after that, occasionally I've looked across at somebody and gone, what the fuck? What? Dude, fix it or right? A therapy membership. How many times have I pointed out like blank tic-tac-toe down the street? I'll give you their phone number. Okay? If that's the kind of stuff you want to do, there's plenty of options. Have at it. It's okay. Even in the Budokan, shit. How many instructors? How many training groups? How many? Holy flying. Now they come and go with the wind. There's no guarantee you're getting your black belt once you start, because just because somebody has the skills to teach martial arts doesn't necessarily mean they have the skills to keep a dojo or a training group running without it folding, or control of their life so that a divorce or a job change or whatever, right, doesn't pull that proverbial carpet out from under your feet. Okay, guys, that's it. If that's it, James, nothing else?
Just Terrence said he's in restart mode again for the third time.
Stop counting. Just do it. Restart, keep going. But I appreciate it. It's the third time. Okay. But just stop counting. Okay? Do it until you don't have to restart. Okay. All right. I will talk to everybody again on Wednesday for Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday, or not. If in case I don't see you this week in class or on one of the freebies or whatever, don't forget Wednesday also the ebook and the audio program will be available, and emails will go out, social posting, all that kind of stuff. So keep an eye out for that if you're interested. And if nothing else, I will see you next week on KUDEN. Get more of KUDEN Radio. Subscribe through your favorite podcasting site, or join our clan of serious modern warriors at online